First of all, I'm not an expert in mapping. I understand the principles, but I don't get too many jobs to do it. Second of all, I disagree with one of the major mapping proponents online, and I won't mention his name. Most map jobs you will run into are done without control points for the purposes of roof inspection, construction progress, or ground inspection. It's not done for surveying or geolocation. Half-inch precision is plenty good enough, and if it's a couple feet off the spatial grid, they won't know the difference. Those are the type of mapping jobs I usually do. I recently ran into a job that was incredibly frustrating, mostly because the requirements to do it didn't match the capabilities of any capture app I was using. I've used Drone Deploy, Pix4D for Android, Pix4D for Apple, and MapPilot, which is only for Apple. And they're not as similar as they may first seem. Yeah, I was recently given a job that required me to map a 36-acre area. They gave me a KML file that I had to use, told me I had to use a 75-degree camera tilt, 75-degree forward overlap, and a 65-degree sideways overlap. Well, so how am I going to do this? I can't do it in Drone Deploy because while it has a lot of the other features, and it's all set up to do very complicated stuff, you can't do it with a camera angle other than straight down. So I guess that's out. Just in case you decide to use it though, always remember to make sure you choose your drone because it'll really set things up in a weird way if you don't. So next we have Pix4D for Android. It's really good for almost any small area that only covers one battery. But when you, it says right on its website that it only covers multiple batteries if you're using a rectangular section. And since most large areas that you do are not rectangular, can't use it. It does load KMLs with no problem. But if you look at the drop-down menu, it only covers one overlap area. So you can't have a separate forward overlap from side overlap, like in this case the requirement was. Now I hadn't read that note, so I accepted the compromise on the overlap and went ahead and used this app. So after roughly 18 minutes of mapping, the thing came back, and then when I tried to put it back up in the air, it just decided to go back to the beginning again. Now this is MapPilot, which is tied in with Maps Made Easy. It had everything that was required for the mission plus a whole lot more. I mean, it's the customization in this app is amazing. It adds its own little difficulties too, in that for one thing it costs money, and another thing, when you change the angle of the camera, you have to do that after the craft is already connected and not before. Now this app also modulates your speed due to motion blur. And I had a particularly difficult time that morning because they wanted me to do it between 8 and 10 a.m. and I was down at 115 feet, which is very low for mapping. The thing I didn't understand at the time is if you run it in connected mode, it depends on the app to tell the craft when to take pictures. That means that your connection is going to determine whether you've got any holes in your map or not. Now, it was a little hard to stay connected when you had a street sweeper running around the parking lot chasing you, making you move. I think I had to move like 5 times. And that was while the drone was in the air. So when I got home, this section I found a lot of holes in. Now I didn't finish that day. Between the temperature, the height I was flying, the motion blur, the low light, the guy chasing me around with a street sweeper, and then the blower guys that followed him up, I actually ran out of batteries. Then I blew a battery up trying to flash charge it to finish. Needless to say, I left the site kind of frustrated and defeated. 2 weeks later, I went back to finish up the job, and I used Pix4D for the iOS. It has everything that was required by the job except for the KML files. Um, the customer didn't like that, but it handles battery changes real well. It does everything that I needed it to do, and I'd only agreed to redo the center portion of the site. What I'm showing you up here, by the way, is not the site. This is a park that's nearby. Another advantage of the iOS version is I've never had it crash like I have the Android. On this particular mission, the Android version crashed at least twice during the first third of the mission. That could have been the tablet I was using, but I really don't know for sure. So why am I putting out this video? I'm hoping you don't fall into the same traps I did. For one thing, I had questions about the timing and height due to some tall trees on the property and the low light in the morning. I flew another drone up to check the tree height and shifted a little higher as a result. I had questions about the app they wanted me to use and its limitations, but figured the mission manager knew more about the job than I did. That was a mistake. I really hadn't considered that it would require so much more time up in the air because of the low light. I knew I would be up 53 minutes at least, and that was 3 batteries, but I ended up with 4 and a partial recharge of 2 just to cover the site. I was a little limited in time due to it being controlled airspace, though the Air Force base I had to deal with was exceptionally accommodating. I had used Map Pilot in Active Connect mode before, but I still can't figure out why the app didn't trigger pictures regularly with me in direct line of sight and no further than 900 feet from the craft at any one time. But I won't use that mode again. I didn't know about the battery change limitation for Android Pix 4D. That was my fault. I had done battery changes before, but I ended up redefining the area with the Android version of Pix 4D. Never really investigated why the battery switch didn't work. There were several small things that I learned about this. For one thing, if I don't feel comfortable about doing the job, I'm not going to take it from now on. The other thing is the seemingly small differences in apps can become major hindrances if you don't know about them. So learn your apps.